the revolving loan fund program, specifically client eligibility. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can look at this PowerPoint. I'll do one more thing here too. So this is the revolving loan program overview, client eligibility. DOH is hoping to provide these webinars, this one for the revolving loan program as a series for stakeholders to have something to use for training for their employees and something as a reference for DOH policies and procedures. So as a part of the series, like Ariel mentioned, there will be future trainings covering stuff like rehab specific policies and procedures, loan approval and denial, property eligibility, things like that. So the revolving loan fund program has two components. The first one being single family owner occupied rehabilitation. That's what that SFU stands for. And the goal of the program is to remove deficiencies, health and safety hazards, correct substandard conditions, correct violations of the local housing codes in your area, and improve accessibility and energy efficiency for owner occupants. The down payment assistance component is to help low to moderate income families afford and purchase a home. So each RLF program needs to define its own service area, and that's based on county or counties. This is especially important for rural areas. Eligible agencies that can apply to DOH and receive this type of funding are local governments, housing authorities, and nonprofit organizations. So if you qualify as one of those agencies and you've ever had a program that went dormant, you have an active program, or you're seeking to get funds for a new RLF program, then you qualify. So we're going over client eligibility criteria today, which covers a few things, which are minimum income, maximum income. Both are determined by Regulation 24 CFR 92.203 and Part 5. And in that, you'll have to verify income and assets, primary residence. For single family owner occupied programs, you'll have to verify ownership of the property, verify that all clients are lawfully present, home buyer education programs for down payment assistance clients, and we also want to discuss local client eligibility policies. So all client households must qualify as low to moderate income for federally funded programs. So that would be our CDBG and home funded programs, meaning that residents who apply can only have incomes up to 80% of the area median income. That's a little higher for our state funded programs. So programs funded for HDG can go up to 100% of area median income. Mainly we're doing DPA for HTG funded programs right now. Agencies must demonstrate that clients meet this criteria to approve the loan. Clients do not need to remain low income after the acquisition or rehabilitation of the home. So you can check income limits annually at these websites. For CDBG and home funded programs, you would check the Home Rent Income Limits website, and they update their information around every June each year. And for HDG funded programs, you would use the CHAPA website, which is updated around every June of each year. I'm sorry, March and April of each year. So when looking at household, you first want to determine household size. All household members must be accounted for in the preliminary application to the agency. This includes a list of all household members and all sources of income and assets. This is only for those living in the home. So if there's someone on the title but not living in the home, you don't need to collect their income information. When verifying household members, you will use documentation such as birth certificates for minors, driver's license and state-issued IDs, custody orders for minors and disabled adults, and school records for minors are acceptable as well. Once you've determined the number of households, then you would start the income qualification process. So when you're anticipating income, it is the gross amount of income, so not their net, during the 12 months following the date of the effective date of the determination. So we use what's called a snapshot of the household's current income circumstance, which means that any income collected at the time of determination, you should assume that those circumstances will continue for the next 12 months. Unless there's verifiable evidence to the contrary, meaning you received a third-party verification, maybe for employment, saying that it's only temporary and that their employment will end in 2 months, then we would expect that you would not use that as an income for the household. So types of income include wages of all adults, earning on all assets, public benefits, alimony, child support, pension and routine payments from from retirement accounts, and benefits of unearned income for underage dependents. Third-party verification refers to a process which a borrower's employment, income, and assets information is verified directly by the mortgagee with the borrower's employer or financial institution through the services of a third-party vendor. And that's only necessary if you're unable to collect from the client 2 months of consecutive pay stubs for employees, if they claim assets, 6 months of bank statements, if they claim Social Security benefits, letters from the Social Security Administration, things like that. If you're unable to collect those items, then we would expect that you would use the third-party verification process and seek that verification through the direct source of income. So agencies must verify all income, assets, expenses, deductions, family characteristics, and circumstances that affect family eligibility or level of assistance. When looking at the 24 CFR reg, you'll find that there are deductions for elderly household members. You would deduct $400 from their gross income, and that is the same for disabled household members as well. When verifying assets, the total value of the asset, if it's $5,000 or more, you would calculate the imputed income using the HUD passbook rate, which is currently 6%. If it's higher than that, then you would use the higher yield rate. So if you are reviewing bank accounts, checking or savings, and it's determined that there is $5,000 or more in the account, then you would multiply that by the HUD passbook rate, which is 6%, giving you $30 income to add to their total income. So you wouldn't add the $5,000, but the income earned off of the $5,000. So we have a maximum income and a minimum income. DOH prefers that agencies set a minimum client income of 50% AMI. If you do have clients that have less than 50% AMI, then additional pre-purchase homebuyer counseling above and beyond the required home counseling is necessary. And you should also offer post-purchase home ownership counseling keeping the clients involved in a supportive program so that they are encouraged and able to continue making their payments. Useful tools for determining income would be the HUD 4155.1 Mortgage Credit Analysis for Mortgage Insurance. And what I find helpful there is that they tell you what the documentation requirements are, what type of documentation is acceptable and what is not, and when to use what. And so this is a really helpful tool when trying to determine what verification you can use for a particular income source. For single family owner occupied clients, rehabilitation clients, you have to verify that they own the property that you're rehabbing. And acceptable forms of verification for that would be vehicle registration, last year's federal income tax return, utility bills, or mail from any of the federal programs like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, SSI, or food stamps dated within 6 months of their application. We also want to verify that this is their primary residence. HUD does not allow assistance to vacation homes, and so we want to determine that this is their main home as defined by the IRS Publication 936, which states that this is the home that you live in most of the time. Clients must sign a clause on their application certifying that the property is or will be their primary residence. Will be is important for single family owner occupied rehabilitation clients because if their home is not up to code and they're not living in that home, they're stating that they will be living in the home once your program has helped the home get up to code. If you have, so for down payment assistance programs, you must verify that the home is the primary resident of the client throughout the affordability period by obtaining a written statement that the client resides in the home as their primary residence. Lawful presence. All programs funded by home or CDBG, and I'm going to include HDG in this, so lawful presence covers all of our RLF funded programs, states that a person cannot receive assistance if they are an undocumented citizen. Unfortunately, undocumented citizens are not able to participate in this program, and that the funds cannot be prorated based on a percentage of legal residents in the household. So some programs like Section 8 allow proration. Unfortunately, this program does not. For down payment assistance program clients, you'll need to have home buyer counseling, and clients must successfully complete this counseling and present a copy of the completion to the agency. And that certificate must be kept in the file. As of August 1st, 2021, housing counseling must be performed by a HUD certified housing counselor. And they must be employed by a HUD approved counseling agency. Agencies must determine the following: the acceptable methods of delivery, whether it's in-person, phone, or online, and the duration of the housing counseling. So there's a minimum number of hours or days. And DOH recommends that attendance by all adults in the household who will hold title be party to the senior loan within the past 12 months at the time of closing. DOH encourages agencies to make additional pre/post-purchase and foreclosure prevention counseling available to their clients, and especially for those clients who have 50% AMI or lower. The counseling may be provided by the agency itself or by a third party.
Hey, Ebony.
Yeah,
We have a quick question going back to lawful presence.
sure.
Amy asked, on lawful presence, will the recent changes to the FHA loan eligibility affect the CRS lawful presence requirement for folks like DACA, U visa, etc.?
I would have to dig into that for you. Right now, we're just going with the policy that states that if they don't have documentation at the time, that we would be unable to assist them. We haven't included any of those changes in our guidelines as of yet, but more to come on that.
That's all the questions we have for right now.
Okay. So your local client eligibility policies, that would be things that aren't covered by DOH policies, things like whether the DPA must be, whether DPA clients must be first-time home buyers, limits on net worth, whether clients must be employed in the agency's program area, or other preferences if allowed by the Fair Housing Act and appropriate for the local market. These policies do add additional administrative burden. And so if they are not adding value to your program, I would caution you to add them or not, because you'll be monitored by DOH on DOH policies and whatever policies you add to your programs. And so make sure that any policies you add provide value to your program. And that's all. So are there any other questions?
Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself at this time if you have any questions. I'm not seeing any yet. Ebony, if we don't have any other questions, would you like to just give a little blurb about what will be covered in the next 2 webinars in this mini-series?
Sure, I can do that. We'll be talking about, like I said, rehab specific policies and procedures, property eligibility, loan approval and denial, and program administration itself. And so those will be some of the topics covered next time. And we'll probably be doing rehab specific policies and procedures and property eligibility together, and then later covering loan approval and denial and program administration on another webinar.
Okay. And it looks like Candace Payne, what is the date on the most current RLF guidelines? I believe we posted them in August of 2020 or around that time. So not too old. There was definitely quite some updates, especially for GPA programs. So if you haven't gone through them, please do so. And Pam said, we do not issue certificates for counseling. We only issue certificates for HVE, your slide indicating having a counseling certificate.
So we need proof that they completed their home buyer counseling class, and it doesn't have to be in the form of a certificate, just proof that they completed the class. So any documentation to state that.
Candace asked, do you know if Chapel will still be a resource for first-time homebuyer courses? I believe so. However, it sounds like CHAFA, when it comes to being the umbrella for meeting the housing counseling certification requirement, it sounds like they already have decided who those agencies will be. We do have a contact for someone to reach out to that I can look at and provide if people are wanting more information on that. But as far as the certification, you will either need to have an agreement with an agency that is certified, or your agency will need to be certified in order to do the housing counseling pieces as well, not just the home buyer courses. All right, any other questions? Well, if not, we will give you back a good chunk of your day back. Thank you all for joining us today, and feel free to reach out with any questions if something comes up to mind later. We appreciate you all joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.